Alright. Hey guys, good morning, and welcome to today's video. As you can hear, this is going to be a soft spoken video. So if you're not into that, leave. Give it a try if you want. I like a lot of soft spoken videos as well. But today we are going to be reading what is known as a no sleep story. And although, as the title suggests, it's supposed to be kind of a spooky little story to scare you into not sleeping, I'm hoping it actually has the exact opposite effect. Now, I'm going to be reading off my phone, and it took me like an hour to set up voice commands, and I just found out I can't have them on, or else it'll be listening to what I'm saying now and freaking out. So, I'm going to be doing this once in a while. And I chose this story in particular. I haven't read it yet, but I did read the very first sentence, and it goes something like this. My neighbor is one of those annoying wannabe YouTube personalities. I knew I had to do it. Okay. Let's begin the story, right? I think it should take about 30 minutes to read this one. I don't know. But I really hope you enjoy. So let's get into it. My neighbor is one of those annoying wannabe YouTube personalities. Over the years, I've seen him cough out cinnamon, lay flat on the hood of a car as it slowly creeps down the driveway, and douse himself in lukewarm water, all the while screaming epic win, epic fail, or fuck, epic maintenance of the status quo for all I know. It can get tiring to watch him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. So when he knocked on my door the other day and told me he was going away for a few weeks and asked that I get his mail, honestly, it was a relief. I can't explain the peace of mind I had knowing I didn't have to brace myself for any of his stupidity for a while. I was always afraid his stunts would wind up bleeding all into my life. Things were pretty normal for the first couple of days. He received a few bills, a bit of spam, and what I could only assume was a birthday card. Then one evening, I got home to find a cardboard box waiting on his front porch. In big red letters was written, "Return to sender." I'm no small fry, but I admit I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy, lugging it across the road. I'm scrolling up. Lugging it across the road to my house was even harder, and I quickly realized there was no way I was going to drag it up the stairs and through my front door. I decided I'd leave the package in my garage. It wasn't like I kept my car in there. The garage door was a piece of shit that refused to open without a good tug and a whack. It was less trouble just leaving the car in the driveway than it was to fight with the garage door every morning and night. In hindsight, I should have set the package down while I struggled to open the tricky door, but you know how it is when you got a good grip on something. No point of setting it down if you don't have to. It was as I kicked the door for the third time that I lost my grip on the package, and it fell to the ground. I heard a light crack inside. Shit, I cursed. I hope I hadn't broken anything important, but figured I just wouldn't tell the neighbor about it and let him assume the break happened en route. Hands-free, I finally managed to get the garage door unstuck, and boy, did it screech in protest as it rolled up and over me. Scroll. dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for whenever my neighbor would come back to claim it. And then I forgot all about it, until a few days passed, that is. I'm not sure exactly how long it took for the smell to waft in from the crack under the garage to house door, but it came in slow progression. It was a sickly sweet odor similar to a skunk, and for the first few days after I smelled it, I generally assumed that's exactly what it was. Roadkill that had left its mark on my house. It was only when I realized the scent was growing more intense instead of fading that I went looking for a source. That's when I opened the garage door, and that's when the odor knocked me back, holding my nose. The culprit wasn't hard to identify. The only change in my garage was the box in the corner. I remember thinking it must have been one of those meat of the month subscription boxes. The meat must have gone rancid from being left out of the fridge for so long. How much meat could have been in there for the box to have been so large and heavy? An entire freaking cow? I covered my nose as I approached the box of scissors. A pair of scissors in my hands. I probably wouldn't have needed them to open it as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger. But I wasn't about to poke my finger into spoiled meat juices. That soggy bottom was the reason I had to open the box in the first place. If I tried to drag it out whole, everything would spill onto the floor. My manager just called me, and I was really worried that I was supposed to be working today. So, I'm not, and I'm good. Okay. I was going to have to dump the piece of meat, one garbage bag at a time, and take them down to the dumpster, a process I wasn't looking forward to. My scissors tore through the tape along the top of the cardboard box. I thought the smell couldn't get any worse, but as I flipped the flaps open, I discovered a whole new gaunt of stink. It was like opening a burning oven, but instead of a heat wave, I was met with a wave of piss, sweat, shit, and putrefaction. It was so bad that I staggered back and had to force down the puke, begging to guzzle out of me. I don't think I could have handled this scene, the scent mingling with the horrors coming out of the box. I'm not ashamed to admit I ran out of the door for a breath of fresh air. But in the short time I'd spent in the garage, the smell had become so ingrained in the fabric of my clothes that it clung to me like a shadow. Oh, that's... Like, I want to know what's in the box. Unless somebody just, actually put all that, like, piss and da-da-da in the box. Nothing I tried could keep the smell out of my nostrils. Not air fresheners, not a face mask, not 3 showers and a change of clothes. Every second that box lay open in my garage was another second the smell was allowed a foothold into my house. I had to bite the bullet. I returned to the garage, the flaps of the box still open, as though inviting me to look. I was prepared. A clothespin pinned my nostrils shut, and a garbage bag in one hand, the strongest cleaner I could find in the other, and long rubber gloves to keep my skin from having to touch what was inside. But as it turns out, I needed none of those things. I wouldn't have to touch or clean the contents of the box. I would only have to suffer the nightmares every night. You see, there was meat in that box, but it didn't come from a cow or pig. No, it was worse than that. It was my neighbor. Dead. Still in one piece, but dead. I was picturing like a medium-sized box. How was he picking up a human? I don't know. Shivers. I called the cops, and naturally they took me in for interrogation. It's kind of hard not to suspect the man with a corpse in his garage after all. Thankfully, they soon realized I wasn't involved. Scroll. My DNA might have been all over that box. The smell might have left a mark through my house, but there was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence. A vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. I'm not sure if they were allowed to, or if they felt so bad for me they figured it wouldn't hurt. Either way, I saw it. My neighbor was sitting in the box outside of a shipping factory, laughing as he told the world how he was going to mail himself across state lines. He'd brought pee bottles, food, a pillow, and a few flashlights. His friend, a guy I'd seen at his place several times to help with his stunts, closed the lid and presumably dropped him off for shipment. Though the next couple of hours or days, I'm honestly not sure, my neighbor recorded a few short clips about his progress. I think I'm in the trunk now. I can feel it moving. Must be in the warehouse. Pretty warm here. Still got plenty of food. That kind of stuff. And then on the last entry, the box toppled over and he broke his neck. And that was it. The camera recorded until either the memory card got full or the battery died. There was one thing I didn't tell the police after they showed after they showed me the video. One thing I heard in the footage that will haunt me to this day, to the day that I die. Just after the tumble that broke his neck, I heard the familiar screeching sound of my garage door. Wait, what? Oh God. So he's the one who dropped him and broke his neck. Okay, see, because up until the last paragraph, I was trying to figure out like the spooky part to it, because typically no sleep stories are supposed to be really like spooky and shivery, but really that was like kind of happy, the guy's going on with his day. Oh, he's glad this YouTuber isn't going to be bothering him. And there's this wacky smell in the garage. Oh, it's probably meats. And then even the scary part that came was that he was dead in the box. But I'm like, that doesn't really connect to anything. What's the point of that? But then the kind of spooky part really came at the end when it was him who had killed him. Obviously not on purpose, but he was trying to open up the garage door and he dropped the box, and that's when the kid broke his head or his neck. Still, not as spooky as I hoped. I was hoping the return to sender thing would have been like some kind of, I don't know, spooky ghost story. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed. I know this video is going to be actually pretty super duper short, so I hope I end up uploading this so you guys can enjoy it. But yeah, Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Actually, why? You know, we're already hanging out over here. Let me find another story. Because, I realize that reading a story for 10 to 15 minutes isn't really gonna put anyone to sleep. If anything, relaxed you a bit. Okay. And refresh. Oh my gosh. Because I just had to turn on my Wi-Fi. And of course you guys are spamming me with Snapchat and YouTube notifications. So my phone's gonna crash. Okay. No idea what that is. Let's see. That's the top of the month. That looks kind of spooky. Okay. This story is called If Your Voice Stops Echoing. Actually, these letters are really hard to read. Let me copy it, copy text, and put it in my little easier to read notepad. There you go, done. A few seconds and life just got much easier. Okay, fix hair, obligatory, and let's begin. I'm not saddened by the recent passing of my grandfather. Rather, I'm compelled to share the way I knew him best. I would not be here today if it was not for him. The entry came from me when I was 8 years old, and there was no way I would have survived if anyone else had been driving. My grandfather and I were on a fishing trip. That day, my dad had intended to join us, but something had come up, so it was just the two of us for the first time. I was a little awkward around my grandfather because I'd never actually been alone with him. I'd always watched others interact with him, but had little to say myself because I was only 8. I was also in awe of how he was to my dad, and the way my dad was to me, namely a voice of authority. When my grandfather told me about the different types of fish and what baits to use, I listened like it was the most important thing in the world. It turned out to be a good thing that I took his words so seriously. The acceptance would later save my life. It became very innocuously as we walked through a small gorge to get back to the car from the prime fishing spot. I could hear my grandfather's voice echo from the high rock walls while he packed things into the car. I had several minutes to wander around, and I used them to run back to the area and shout strangely. My yell echoed only feebly once, and then not at all. Scream as I might, I heard no reflection of the noise. I was too young at the time to really understand how important that was. I just assumed I was yelling wrong somehow, or that my grandfather had a special grown-up tremble that allowed his voice to echo while mine just dropped off. Still, it bothered me, and I eventually brought it up on the drive back. Everything about that moment became sacred. seared. Man, this guy uses some big words I don't know of. Seared, I guess like burned into his memory. It was 3:22 in the afternoon by the clock in the car's dashboard. The sky was mostly clear with traces of white, and my grandfather's eyes were wide orbs of alarm turned upon me while his white knuckles tightened around the wheel. "What did you say, boy?" I asked how I can echo like you. I told him, suddenly afraid that I'd done something wrong. I yelled and I couldn't echo. His face was normally crisscrossed with lines that ran their way along relaxed, droopy skin. At that moment, his forehead and cheeks tightened to smoothness, and he scanned left and rapidly right. He didn't seem to find what he was looking for through the windows, but he did not seem reassured. Here, he leaned over and opened the glove box in front of me and pulled out a bag of jelly beans. I smiled for a moment, but he was not giving them to me as a gift, that way he'd intended. Eat them all. I held the bag in my hands. It seemed a massive feast if I'd been left to my own devices, but I might have eaten them all eventually, but not all at once. Why? "Eat them all, boy," he said gruffy, his tone brooking no argument. I began stuffing the jelly beans in my mouth. He looked down and around, and then at the back seat, then at his travel thermos in the cup holder between us. He thrust it into my hands to join the spilling bag of beans. "Drink this, all of it." "I'm not allowed to have coffee," I told him. "Mom," he cut me off. "Your mother will understand. Drink it. I know it tastes bad, but down it all." His gaze refocused on something beyond me, and I turned my head to the window to see the forest hills rolling by various apparent speeds based on their distance. The furthest hills, out on the horizon, hardly seemed to be moving at all, but I thought I saw a tiny little speck atop one. My grandfather gripped my shoulder with one hand. "Drink, boy, drink, and eat those jelly beans. You need the sugar and you need the caffeine. It's going to make you fall asleep. Don't let it." To say I was scared then would have been an understatement. No part of me thought this was a prank of some sort. He was too reserved and austere, a man for that. The coffee tasted horrible, but I gulped it down until none was left. After that, I began swallowing jelly beans whole until they were gone. I looked to my right. A speck in the distance was still out there, but now one range of the hills was closer. It was still tiny, but now held movement akin to something waving back and forth. I looked to my grandfather in askance. I would think he's saying assurance. Yeah. He in turn looked away from the thing in the distance to focus on my face. He breathed in through his nose and turned forward, determined in his way I'd never seen him. His leg moved and the car began to accelerate. We'd already been going the speed limit on the empty highway. The sugar, caffeine, and fear began to have an effect on me. I remember my cheeks and forehead warming and my hands growing clammy again I asked. "What's going on? I'm scared." "Be scared," he breathed, his eyes on the road as he continued to hit the gas. I could see the needle passing 80. "That'll help you keep awake. That'll help keep you awake. This thing, this godforsaken thing, it came for your grandmother, and it started the same way. Just before a long drive, we noticed her voice stopped echoing. His face contorted into a furious mask. But cars are a lot better now than they were back then. I won't let it get you." Ooh. My back began forcefully pressing into my seat as he put the gas to the floor. I watched the needle pass 90, and then I looked out the window again. It was even closer now, visible as the silhouette of a man running up hills, between trees, and over boulders, parallel to us. It's still out there. My grandfather grunted angrily and audibly slammed his foot down. I held onto my armrest and the door handle in terror as our car toppled 100 miles an hour and began to shake. It felt like we were in a barely controlled projectile far beyond any limit of safety, and I was terrified the highway would suddenly stop being empty and we would smash into a car or truck ahead. But even though that overwhelming fear and adrenaline, a chill tiredness began sleeping up my spine. My eyes began to feel heavy, and I barely looked to my right. The shock woke me up. It was on the gravel shoulder of the highway now, and completely visible as a black humanoid silhouette running at incredible speed alongside our car. In the moving pitch darkness, I could see lit pinpoints that made it feel as if I was gazing into the night. The afternoon sun burned in the sky above and behind it with no effect. Staring as it blurred, feet began to plod across the painted line at the edge of the road. I felt sleepy again. It was running parallel to us, but drawing even closer. "Wake up," my grandfather screamed, risking one hand off the wheel as 110 miles an hour to shake my shoulder. "It's trying to drain the life out of you. Wake up." He jerked the car one line to the left and still pressed into my seat by the acceleration. I started down at the hypnotic dashes in the middle of the road. Bit by bit, black feet began landing between each dash, keeping pace with us. I remember the car shaking violently around me and the way I imagined a space shuttle lifting off might around its astronauts. I know now we were crossing 120 and nearly the most the car could offer, but at the time I was caught in watching the hypnotic dashes and stars in those void legs moving rapidly back and forth as it ran right up alongside the car and reached down with one hand to open the door. Wind blasted around me, the gale force of 120 miles an hour winds tore at my clothing and hair. Walking up halfway, waking up halfway, I screamed at my grandfather, jerked the car to the left again as much as he could without going off the road. It didn't matter. The running silhouette held the door open against the wind with its star-filled arm and began preparing to leap into the car with us. The other arm gripped my neck, and the cold that it brought cannot be described with mere words. The closest I can come to say that the vast speeds and forces of the anesthesis cosmos hated me. Somewhere ice and anti-life were the rule, moving through emptiness at absurd velocities, and this thing was some small part of that undead will. But it was not fully here. It could only interact with us in certain windows. That's what I believe now. My grandfather gave the only shout of fear I would ever hear from him as the cars seemed to be shaking apart around us. I looked left at the speedometer, found the needle to be unreadily far out into the red, and felt the heavy blanket of sleep fall over me as the silhouette grasped repeatedly but failed to reach me. The door slammed shut, cutting off the wind. Inch by inch, we began pulling away. It ran furiously alongside, but the entity just a tiny bit too slow. Between one moment and the next, realizing it couldn't get us, it vanished. We'd escaped it. I awoke in a hospital several days later. My grandfather told nobody the real story, of course, but the doctors had plenty of diversion. Somehow I'd been drained of a number of vital electrolytes and salts, and so on, and they chalked my coma up to some sort of severe dietary imbalance. But I knew the truth, and I've made sure to tell people I care about the small pieces of advice that my grandfather told me. I don't care if it makes sense to you, just listen. It's out there still, in the open lands of the Midwest, and it's probably always been there. It was just never a problem before we started bringing great speeds into our daily lives. People die every day by falling asleep at the wheel, and I know for certain that's not all of those incidents are incorrect. If your voice stops echoing, cancel your road trip. It's waiting for you. Okay. Yeah, I think that story was long enough and spooky enough. So, I really hope that you enjoyed. That gave me some chills. I do have to say though, I'm not very satisfied with both stories. The first one was not spooky enough, and then the second one didn't have much of a body to it. Like you don't know of this empty being that chases down people and sucks its energy. You don't know where it came from or why it's there or really why it does what it does. So I feel like that took away some of the fear. So yeah, it was definitely good. It was definitely good, but none of the stories were as perfect as I wanted to share to you. And so I hope that's all right, and I hope you forgive me. And I hope you're very relaxed, or at least sleeping right now. Okay. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.